Hi everyone. Today we're diving into the key of quantitative research designs used in education. It's the correlation design. And by the end of this session, I hope you'll be able to recognize a correlational study, understand what kind of data it uses, and know what researchers can and can't say about their findings. Correlational design is used to explore the relationship between two or more variables. It's seeing if things move together, not proving that one causes the other. So an example here would be to think about would be, is there a relationship between how many hours maybe you study and your test scores? Now that's a classical correlational question. And the reason why is because this explores whether the two natural occurring variables study time and the test scores are statistically related. It involves manipulating either variable. We're not assigning students to study for a set number of hours or controlling their environment. What we're doing is measuring both variables as they exist in real life. And this kind of question is ideal for correlational design because both variables are continuous and measurable. So the goal is to identify a pattern or association rather than establishing a cause and effect in correlational design. It reflects a common educational concern as to how study habits may relate to academic performance, and this makes it relevant and easy to understand. So we might find that more study hours are associated with higher scores, but we can't say studying more causes better scores because there's other factors such as prior knowledge, sleep, test anxiety that could be influencing the outcome as well. So here's a little mini activity I want to do with us. Review these examples below, and I'm going to be quiet for just a few minutes while you look at those. And I want you to consider if this would be a good fit for correlational design, and then just a simple yes or no as you go through them will be fine. I'm going to be quiet for just a minute or two, and that way you can go through these 8 examples and decide. Just a few more seconds. Okay, so I hope you had time to go through each of these examples and really think through it. But the first one, hours of sleep and test anxiety. This is a correlational design, and it's because both variables are measurable. So you're observing whether more sleep is associated with less anxiety without manipulating either. Now, number two, class size and student performance. That is also correlational. You can collect data on class sizes and average student scores to see if there's a relationship, but you're assigning students to different classes, so there's no causation. Number three is the use of flashcards and exam scores, and that is also correlational. And the reason why is because you can survey students on their study habits and compare them to their scores. But like the other factors like prior knowledge, those things could influence both. Number four is teacher praise and student motivation. And yes, this is correlational. You can measure the frequency of praise and motivation levels through surveys. So you're not controlling how much praise is given. So it's just observational. What are you seeing that's actually happening in real life? Number five is school funding and graduation rates, and this is correlational because you can compare the funding levels across schools and their graduation rates, and it helps you identify patterns, but it doesn't prove that funding causes graduation. Number 6 is type of instruction, so like lecture versus group work, and learning outcomes. And no, this is purely correlational, so it's not. Um, we don't see this at all because what it does, it involves comparing groups based on instructional methods, which tends to lean towards experimental or quasi experimental design. So this is not a correlational design. Number 7, student age and reading level. This is correlational because both variables are naturally occurring and measurable. You can examine if older students tend to have higher levels in reading, and so that helps us see that this is correlational. Number 8, parental involvement and student attendance, and this is also correlational. You can measure parental involvement, like the number of school visits, how often they're in the classroom, the number of minutes, things like that, and the attendance records to see if there's a link between these two. So I got a bonus challenge for you that you can also work up in your discussion post. So I'd like for you to come up with your own variable pair and explain, would it work in a correlational study, yes or no? What kind of data would you be collecting to prove that it's correlational? And what could researchers say about the findings? And then post this also in your discussion for the week. This will kind of help us as a launch to be able to look a little deeper into these correlational designs. What I really want you to remember is how we break this down. So, correlational designs typically involve two or more continuous variables. There's no manipulation, it's just purely observational. The statistical analysis is usually a Pearson's R, which ranges from -1 to +1. And so I want you to think of if you had a correlation of positive 0.85, what would that mean? If you're thinking that this is a strong positive relationship, you're right. And so that would mean that our correlation is showing that we do have that upward swing towards this actually being closely related to one another, that we could correlate these things. Now, that leads us to how we're really thinking about this aspect, what you can and cannot say about the findings. Because it's really important, we need to think about what you can say. So, with correlational design, you can say that there is a relationship that exists between two variables. So, you could say there is a statistically significant relationship between X and Y, but and you can describe the direction of the relationship. So, like in our last one, that this is a positive because it's on that positive side of one. Or you could say that it's negative. And you can report the strength of the relationship using correlation coefficient, like the Pearson's R, like we did in the last slide. And you can say whether the correlation is statistically significant, meaning it's unlikely to be due to chance. So it does have influence on the other. But here's the big limitation: you cannot say that one variable causes the other, because correlational studies don't involve manipulating variables, random assignment, controlling for confounding factors. And so without these elements, you can't establish a cause and effect relationship. Even if two variables are strongly correlated, there could be a third variable that influences both. So let's illustrate this a little bit by saying we find a strong correlation between students' attendance and their GPA. We can say that attending class causes better grades. No, we can't say that because what we can only say is that they're related. Maybe students who are more motivated both attend class and study harder, or maybe students with better support systems are more likely to show up and succeed. We don't know the direction or the underlying cause in this, so we cannot say X causes Y. We can just say that there's statistically significant relationships between X and Y. So let's look at a real world example and bring this concept to life for us. Now, this study is titled The Relationship Between Teacher Self Efficacy and Student Achievement. This is a correlational study, meaning that the researchers wanted to know, do the teachers feel more confident in their teaching abilities? Do they tend to have students who perform better academically? And how they approached it is they had the variables, the teacher self efficacy scores, which were measured in a survey, and then they had student achievement scores, which were measured by standardized test scores. And so the design was that there was no manipulation of the variables, no experimental groups, just observation and statistical analysis. And what they found was a positive correlation, an R or a Pearson's R of 0.45. Now, this suggested that there's a moderate relationship. It's not really high and it's not really low, but it's kind of right there in the middle. That when teachers' confidence goes up, students' test scores tend to go up too. And so, what this means is that this correlational design shows that it identifies meaningful relationship between the two educational variables. It helps generate a hypothesis for future research. Maybe confident teachers use more effective strategies. Maybe that would be the direction that they went with their hypothesis. But, and now this is key, so think about it. What it does not prove is that a teacher's confidence causes student success. There could be other factors at play, like more experienced teachers might feel more confident and also have better classroom management. Or schools with strong support systems might foster both teacher confidence and student achievement. So, what this illustrates for us is how correlational design is employed to investigate a significant in questions in education. And it's a powerful tool for spotting patterns. But we can always need to really be careful about how we could jump to a conclusion for this, because we need to think about how this does not cause relationships. It just generates hypothesis. So remember that correlation is not causation. So the next time that you read a study and see correlational design, ask yourself, what are the variables? What are the relationships? And what can the author claim? So just remembering that correlation does not equal causation. There could be other factors at play. So we need to identify, what are all the variables? What are the factors that could influence this? And so for our discussion this week, I really want us to start thinking about, why is it dangerous to assume causation from correlation? I want you to add your thoughts. I want you to add your questions. And I really look forward to engaging with you in the discussion this week. I hope you're having an amazing week, and we'll talk to you soon.